The shot over Brian Russell. The shrug against Portland. The flu game. We all know these Michael Jordan moments. The GOAT, the 6 rings, the legendary trash talk, it's all been covered a million times. But there's one savage moment that changed everything, and almost nobody talks about it. I'm going to destroy you. These words weren't said during a game. They weren't even said to an opponent. What happened next would change the Chicago Bulls forever, but most fans have never heard the full story. Michael Jordan was more than just a basketball player. He was a killer on the court. The way he'd stare down opponents, the way he'd find any reason to get mad and then take it out on the other team. We've all seen the highlights, heard the trash talk stories. Shoot it you midget, to Muggsy Bogues. Telling Dikembe Mutombo, welcome to the NBA, before hitting a free throw with his eyes closed. But here's the thing, those moments. They were just for show. The real Michael Jordan, the one his teammates feared and respected, came out when the cameras weren't rolling. In practice. Behind closed doors. That's where the real savage moments happened. Today, we're going to tell you about the most savage Michael Jordan moment that nobody talks about. It wasn't in Game 6 of the finals. It wasn't against the bad boy Pistons. It wasn't even against an opponent. This was something different. Something that showed exactly who Michael Jordan really was. What happened that day in practice changed everything. It nearly broke up the greatest team in NBA history. But it also led to something nobody expected. Before we tell you that story, you need to understand something. This isn't just another Jordan highlight. This is about what made him different. What made him Michael Jordan. Some of his teammates from that time still don't like talking about it. Others say it was the moment that made them champions. But they all agree, what happened that day showed them who Michael Jordan really was. Not the guy selling sneakers. Not the guy smiling in McDonald's commercials. The real MJ. Get ready, because this story isn't what you expect. This is the untold story of Michael Jordan's most savage moment. And it's about time someone told it right. Before we get to the moment that changed everything, let's remember the Jordan everyone thinks they know. Number 23. The tongue out. The fadeaway jumper. The guy who made being a global superstar look easy. 6 NBA championships. 5 MVP awards. 10 scoring titles. The numbers don't even tell half the story. Jordan wasn't just winning, he was dominating. Every night, he wasn't just trying to beat you. He was trying to break your spirit. We've all seen the famous clips. Jordan hanging in the air against the Lakers. Switching hands against the Lakers. Hitting the shot over Craig Ello. Each moment bigger than the last. Each celebration more iconic. The media loved it. The fans couldn't get enough. Here was a guy who never seemed to fail, never seemed to show weakness. Off the court. He was everywhere. Jordan shoes. Jordan cologne. Jordan in Space Jam. The perfect smile, the perfect image, the perfect star. Be like Mike wasn't just a slogan, it was what every kid in the world wanted to do. But here's what most people missed. While everyone was watching Air Jordan fly, while they were buying his shoes and hanging his posters, the real Michael Jordan was different. The guy his teammates saw every day wasn't the smiling superstar from the Gatorade commercials. The real Jordan. He was meaner. More intense. More savage. His teammates would show up to practice thinking it was just another day. But to Jordan, every practice was Game 7 of the finals. Every scrimmage was personal. Every drill was life or death. Some guys couldn't handle it. They'd either get traded or quit. Others learned to deal with it. A few even earned his respect. But nobody was ready for what Jordan could really be like when he felt challenged. That's what makes this story different. Because what happened that day in practice? It wasn't just Jordan being competitive. It wasn't just Jordan trying to win. This was something else. This was Jordan crossing a line that nobody knew existed. Behind the curtain section. Let's talk about the Michael Jordan nobody saw. The one who showed up 3 hours before practice. The one who would curse out his teammates if they weren't giving 100%. The one who turned simple practice drills into personal wars. Phil Jackson, the Bulls coach, once said practicing with Jordan was harder than playing actual games. Think about that. The greatest player in the world, and he practiced even harder than he played. Some days, he'd pick one teammate and just make it his mission to destroy them. Not to make them better. Not to teach them. Just to show he could. His teammate Steve Kerr said it best, "People don't understand." Michael didn't have an off switch. There was no friendly practice. There was no taking it easy. If you weren't ready for war every single day, he'd make you pay for it. The Bulls' practice facility wasn't just a gym, it was Jordan's kingdom. He made the rules. He set the tone. If practice started at 10, you better be there at 9:30. If you missed a defensive assignment, you'd hear about it. Not from the coaches. From Jordan. And he wouldn't just tell you. He'd show you, by scoring on you again and again until you either fixed it or broke down. Even the team scrimmages were intense. Jordan would sometimes change the teams if he thought his side had it too easy. He'd talk trash the whole time, but this wasn't the fun stuff you heard in games. This was personal. He'd bring up your contract, your playing time, your future in the league. Scottie Pippen, Jordan's famous teammate, later admitted, "Some days, we'd all just look at each other and wonder, is this worth it? Is winning this important?" To Michael, the answer was always yes. Always. But in late 1995, something changed. Jordan was different. More aggressive. More personal. The practices got more intense. The trash talk got meaner. Everyone could feel something building. Sunk to another title. Is he too old now? Every newspaper, every TV show, everyone was doubting Michael Jordan. And if there's one thing you never do, it's doubt Michael Jordan. The pressure was building. The Bulls had started the season strong, but Jordan wasn't just trying to win games. He was trying to make a statement. He wanted 70 wins. Something no team had ever done. But more than that, he wanted to shut everyone up. All the critics. All the doubters. Everyone who said baseball had made him soft. Inside the Bulls' practice facility, things were getting crazy. Jordan was pushing harder than ever. New teammates like Dennis Rodman were trying to figure out how to deal with him. Veterans like Scottie Pippen were trying to keep the peace. But Jordan? He was like a volcano ready to explode. Every little thing set him off. If someone showed up 5 minutes late, Jordan called them out. If someone missed an easy shot, Jordan wouldn't let them forget it. If someone didn't dive for a loose ball in practice, Jordan would stop everything and make them do it again. The media didn't help. Every day, there were cameras everywhere. Everyone wanted to know if the Bulls could break the wins record. Everyone wanted to know if Jordan was really back. The questions never stopped. The pressure never let up. Phil Jackson tried to calm things down. He'd seen Jordan like this before, but this was different. This wasn't just Jordan being competitive. This was Jordan with something to prove. And a Jordan with something to prove was dangerous. Then came that week in December. The Bulls had won 10 straight games. They were on top of the NBA. Everything looked perfect from the outside. But inside that practice facility, a storm was brewing. Jordan was getting more intense every day. Players were walking on eggshells. Nobody knew it then, but all this pressure, all this intensity, was about to explode. And when it did, it would happen in a way that nobody expected, with someone nobody expected, and with results that would change the Bulls forever. What happened next has become Bulls legend. Not the kind they show in highlight reels. The kind players whisper about in locker rooms, years later, when they talk about what made those Bulls teams different. Jordan got right in Kerr's face. "You wanna go? Let's go right now." But this wasn't just trash talk anymore. Jordan was testing Kerr. Testing his heart. Testing if he belonged. Then it happened. Kerr pushed back. Not just physically, but he stood up to Jordan. Said he wasn't backing down. Not today. Not ever. That's when Jordan snapped. He threw a punch. Connected right with Kerr's eye. In the middle of practice. The greatest player in the world just hit his own teammate. The gym went silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Even Phil Jackson stood there frozen. But here's the savage part that nobody talks about. Jordan didn't stop. He looked around the gym at every other player and shouted, "That's what happens when you mess with me. Anyone else want some?" This wasn't about basketball anymore. This wasn't even about winning. This was Jordan marking his territory. Kerr, with a black eye forming, got up. Everyone expected him to walk out. To quit. To demand a trade. Instead, he got back in the scrimmage. Didn't say a word. Just played. And Jordan? He respected that. But he wasn't done. He pointed at every player in the gym and said, "Y'all better bring this energy every day. Every single day." The practice didn't stop. That's what was crazy. They kept playing. Jordan kept scoring. Kept talking. But something had changed. Everyone in that gym understood something new about Jordan. This wasn't just about being the best. This was about being willing to do anything, to win. Phil Jackson later said he thought about stopping practice. About suspending Jordan. But he knew better. He knew this moment, as ugly as it was something his team needed to see. Needed to understand. This was Jordan showing everyone what it really takes to be a champion. The most savage part? After practice, Jordan walked by Kerr, looked at his black eye, and said, "Now I know I can trust you. See you tomorrow." No apology. No regret. Just a test passed. A message sent. A team forever changed. The aftermath section. That night, Phil Jackson called an emergency team meeting. Not a regular meeting. No basketballs. No practice plans. Just chairs in a circle, and a team that needed to figure out if they were going to fall apart or come together. Jordan sat there, still intense, still unapologetic. Kerr's eye was swollen, but he was there too. The rest of the team waited to see what would happen. Would Jordan apologize? Would Kerr quit? Would this destroy the best team in basketball? Then something unexpected happened. Jordan stood up. Everyone thought he was going to give some big speech, maybe apologize. Instead, he looked at Kerr and said something nobody expected. "Today, we found out who we really are. Today, we became a championship team." The room was confused. Phil Jackson, who'd seen everything in basketball, just watched. He knew something special was happening. Jordan continued, "I don't punch teammates who don't matter. I don't test people who can't handle it. What happened today? That's what champions are made of." Kerr, still sporting that black eye, started nodding. He got it. This wasn't just about a punch. This was about respect. About proving you belonged. About showing you'd do anything to win. Later, Kerr would say this was the day he really became part of the Bulls family. The media never got the full story. The Bulls kept it quiet. But word spread around the NBA. The Bulls weren't just talented anymore, they were tough. Different. When other teams heard what happened, they understood, this wasn't just another good team. This was a team that would do anything to win. In the locker room, things changed. Players started practicing harder. Nobody complained about Jordan's intensity anymore. They understood it. Some even welcomed it. The whole team started playing with a different edge. Even Dennis Rodman, who'd seen everything in basketball, said he'd never seen anything like it. Michael didn't just show us how to win, Rodman said later. He showed us what it takes to be great. And sometimes, being great ain't pretty. 20 years later, and this moment still affects the NBA. Not just because of what happened, but because of what it taught us about winning, about leadership, and about what makes teams great. Look at today's NBA. When Kobe Bryant was pushing his teammates hard in practice, people understood, he learned that from Jordan. When LeBron James challenges his teammates in practice, that's part of Jordan's legacy. The idea that greatness requires more than just talent, that comes from moments like this. Steve Kerr became a coach himself, leading the Golden State Warriors to championships. When people ask him about building winning teams, he often thinks back to that practice. Sometimes, he says, the hardest moments make the strongest teams. He didn't just learn basketball from Jordan, he learned leadership, even if it came with a black eye. Modern players watch old Bulls documentaries and see Jordan's highlights, but they don't always understand what really made those teams special. It wasn't just the dunks or the shots. It was moments like this, when a team decided that winning was worth any price. NBA coaches now talk about practice intensity and building mental toughness. But few teams really understand what that means. The Bulls lived it. That punch wasn't just about Jordan being angry, it was about setting a standard. About showing that greatness requires sacrifice. So what's the real story here? Why does this moment matter more than all of Jordan's dunks, more than the championships, more than the highlights? Because it shows us something real about greatness that most people never see. Everyone wants to be great. Everyone wants to be like Mike. But they want the easy part, the fame, the glory, the game-winning shots. This moment shows us the other side. The side where greatness isn't pretty. Where winning costs something, means. It means being willing to be the bad guy. Being willing to push people past their comfort zone. Being willing to demand more than what seems reasonable. That's why this story matters. Because real greatness isn't in the highlights. It's in the moments nobody sees. The hard practices. The tough conversations. The times when you have to choose between being liked and being great. Jordan chose greatness. Every time. Even when it meant throwing a punch at practice. Even when it meant being the villain. Even when it meant risking everything. And in the end, that's what made him and his team not just champions, but legends. This isn't just a story about Michael Jordan. This is a story about what it really takes to be great. And sometimes, that's the hardest truth of all to accept.